Hello there, John Stofflet from UWEBC. We have an exciting guest for you today. If you care about the customer experience, and you should if you're in business, because he's going to tell you it's the most important thing. Dan Gingiss is going to be a speaker on our marketing track on October 1st at our UWEBC annual conference. And he's also doing a mini boot camp the day before. And he has also delivered a pizza to Michael Jordan at one point in his life. So, all that we're going to talk to him about. Dan, it's great to have you here to talk about customer experience because, from what I understand, you feel like price, product, it's hard to compete on that compared to customer experience.
Yeah, 100%. First of all, thank you for having me on, John. I'm excited to talk with you. Yeah, competing on price is a losing game. It's a race to the bottom. All you have to do is ask a gas station that has its competitor across the street, right? There's a reason why they're selling gas for the same price. And competing on product or service has become really, really difficult as almost every industry has become commoditized. So for that, I look to something like the rideshare industry. Obviously, when Uber first came out, it completely disrupted the taxi industry. It completely changed how consumers thought about getting from point A to point B. You fast forward to today, and if you get in a car at an airport, I dare you to tell me whether you're in an Uber or a Lyft. And probably you're in both because the drivers work for both companies. So now you have this industry that absolutely redesigned and disrupted an existing industry, and yet the players today are almost indistinguishable. And so what happens because of that? People go for price. They do what I do, which is they open up both apps and they say, well, I got to get from point A to point B. Who's going to get me there cheaper? Because it literally doesn't matter to me. And so we don't want that to be the case in our business. We don't want to be competing on price or product. And so what's left is experience. And the good news is that consumers pay for experience. They will pay more for a better experience. And experience is what makes you memorable. So not only does it have people come back and spend more with you, but more importantly, it has people talking about you to others. And as a marketer for 20 years, I worked in almost every channel there is. Any marketer will tell you the holy grail is word of mouth. That's the best kind of marketing there is because it's the most genuine and authentic. And I believe that word of mouth happens when we give people great experiences to talk about.
And you've had some wonderful leadership positions and really made an impact on companies people might have heard of, like McDonald's, Humana, Discover. I think we all know what those companies are. But this word of mouth you're talking about, it's funny because that used to be the main way the word got out. It's never really left, but then I think companies really push, marketing, magazine ads, but still this word of mouth. If I say something nice about your company, and you acknowledge it and carry through. And if I'm a customer, I look at that and I think the word of a fellow customer is gospel. How would you say the impact of word of mouth has changed with social media?
Well, actually, it's a great question because I think social media is why we're talking about customer experience today. And let me make that connection for you. So, when we were kids, if we wanted to talk to a company, we either called their customer service, but you really only did that if you had a problem, or if you wanted to say something nice to them, you wrote them a letter. That's the only way you could talk to them, right? And I did that as a kid. I still remember when Dan and Yogurt wrote me back with coupons and a sticker, and I was so excited, right? So when social media came out, all of a sudden there was this opportunity for consumers to establish a relationship with the brands that they loved. Not just the brands that they didn't love or the brands that disappointed them, but the ones that they are really loyal to. And there never was that opportunity in the past. And so all of a sudden you got a lot of people coming to social to share the brands that they love, to share why they love their brands. And I thought that was such an interesting dynamic change because social also brought us way more customer feedback than we had ever had. Because whether they're talking directly at us as a brand or not, if we're listening, we can hear the things that we're doing right, that we should be doing more of, that we're doing wrong, that we should be stopping, or that we're not doing at all, that we should be starting. And so I think social changed the game for customer experience and frankly set expectations at a much higher level than they ever had been.
A couple of things I want you to talk on about social media because I think it's just really vital. I'm sure you'll reinforce that companies don't leave someone hanging. If you've ever gone to shake someone's hand and they just walk past you, isn't it kind of the same thing if I take the time to say, I love this new burrito and I get nothing back from the person I'm complimenting? How important is it to be responsive, which I know is one of your hallmarks?
Yes, we have to be responsive to all customers. And I talk about this a lot in my book that almost everybody deserves a response. The only people that don't are spammers or people that are spewing hate. We don't have to talk to them. But whether somebody is complimenting you, complaining about you, or asking a question of you, all of those people deserve responses. And I think in particular, what was missed early on, it's gotten better, still not great, is responding to the people who are complimenting. And the reason for this is that there's never been a team at a company that had that responsibility, right? As we said before, the customer service team, well, they're responsible for handling complaints and questions. Now, all of a sudden, there's an influx of positivity, and literally companies didn't know what to do with it. And one of the things that I always recommend is that very early on, marketing teams tried to grab those because those are easy, right? It's nice to talk to somebody who loves you. And I always thought that was a mistake. And that what we should do is we should allow customer service teams to talk to the brand lovers as well. Because if you think about their job, they talk to people who are aggravated all day long. It's a very difficult job. And if we can sprinkle in some people who love the brand, we're going to make the agent's day a little bit better. We're going to make them prouder of the place that they work. And that's going to help them when they get the angry or the upset customer. So I always believe that responding to positive comments is great. It locks in that loyalty. If I took the time to spend some of my social capital, spend some of the time of my day to go out and compliment you on your burrito, you have two choices. You can ignore me, in which case maybe I don't care, and maybe now my thoughts about you have changed a little bit and are a little more negative. Or you can respond to me and say, "Hey Dan, we love we love having you as a customer as well, and you have locked in my love for your brand and my loyalty for your brand." And anybody that's ever had a major brand respond to them on social media knows what I'm talking about. You feel like you are important, that you are, a celebrity almost. And it really is a big deal. I was so surprised when I saw this Discover card, how happy we made people just by responding to them. I'm like, we're a credit card company. We're not like a fun burrito company. We're a credit card company.
And it's validation, right? And as you've said, also, negative comments aren't necessarily a bad thing in the long run if a company knows how to take that data really directly from the consumer. Tell me how important it is to learn from those comments, as long as they're not trollers and spammers.
Yeah. So I always tell people, don't be afraid of complaints. People complain because they care. They actually want you to solve their problem so that they can keep doing business with you. The people we really need to be worried about are what I call your leaky bucket. These are people that are leaving your business every day and they're not telling you why. And you've obviously done something to cause this, but you don't even know why. So in that scenario, you've lost a customer, your competitor has gained a customer, and you're none the wiser. So you can't even fix what went wrong. I would so much rather have a customer leave my company in a blaze of glory, yelling and screaming all the complaints. So at least I know what I might be able to do differently for the next customer. And it's hard to accept complaints. It's hard to hear complaints. I ask for feedback in every speech that I do on stage. And yeah, 99% of it is positive. And you know where my eye goes, just like everyone, right? I want to know the one guy that didn't like the talk or that had some complaint. And I want to give weight to that because I want to make sure that next time there's no guys out of 100, right? And as I mentioned before, I think this falls into three categories. It's going to be, what are you doing well? And therefore, how do we do more of it? Because if people are telling us they like it, we need to expand on that. What are we doing wrong? We got to figure out a way to stop doing that or to do it differently. And then the third thing, which also can be in the form of a complaint, is what are we not doing at all that our customers wish we were doing? That kind of thing also can be super valuable feedback. And so not only do we want to respond to these people, but we want to make every effort to address what they're talking about. The general going assumption was that every time we got a complaint in a phone call, that 100 other customers had the same problem, they just never called us. And so you might look at it as, oh, we just got one complaint. But no, that's actually the person that took the time to tell you about it. It's the other 100 that we're solving this problem for, lest they become part of the leaky bucket.
I love the strategy of the wiser method that you'll be talking about at your boot camp. So if you could just tell us what the acronym stands for, each word, go ahead and run through what wiser is.
Sure. So wiser is a methodology for creating experiences that people want to share. That's the key part about it. And so wiser stands for witty is the W. That's about being fun, not necessarily being funny, but having fun with language and being clever. Immersive, which is about appealing to people's senses and appealing to people's emotions so that you create these experiences that we feel in our bones. Shareable, which is intentionally setting up the experience so there's a moment when people will pull out their phone and take a picture or a video and share it with someone else. Extraordinary, which is about looking in the places of your organization where you are ordinary or you've been doing it the same way for 100 years and saying, what if we just did it a little bit differently? It doesn't have to be more expensive or anything like that. It just has to be different from everybody else. And then the R, as you mentioned, is in being responsive. And when you use the WISE, you're going to get more people talking about you, which means you need to be more responsive to them, and you continue that cycle.
Yes, and you'll delve into this in your mini boot camp on the 30th and also the talk you're doing on the 1st for the marketing track. All right, so the Michael Jordan pizza delivery question. First of all, I find it interesting that you were out delivering pizzas, and at that time, your father was running a pretty big formal wear company, but yet you were out there working. How old were you, and how did you come to deliver a pizza, Michael Jordan?
Yeah, this was one of my favorite jobs in high school. I worked for Domino's. I learned every aspect of the business. I learned how to make pizzas. I learned how to take the orders, and then the bulk of my job was delivering. And I didn't realize this till later that this was a great lesson in customer service. And so was the meeting with Michael Jordan. It was very well known that Michael Jordan ordered from this Domino's quite often. He called in the pizzas himself. He was a fairly frequent orderer. But I never had the opportunity to deliver to his home. And there were all sorts of things, if it was a cheese pizza, that wasn't actually him. That was the housekeeper ordering for the kids. So that one didn't count. He always ordered pepperoni and sausage. So you knew that was him. But what was interesting is when I got to his door and he did answer the door, I'll never forget. And I'm looking up like this at him because he's huge. I noticed the first thing was that he was looking past me. He was looking behind me to make sure that there wasn't anybody, any photographers or anybody else there to bother him. And in an instant, I realized this customer service learning moment that he deserved privacy just like anybody. And I had been told ahead of time by the other drivers that you could ask him for an autograph and he would give you one, but then he wouldn't tip you. And if you didn't ask for an autograph, he was a very generous tipper. To be honest, I already knew I wanted the tip. But that moment where I just observed him looking past me is when I realized that that was the only fair answer. That the guy didn't deserve, when ordering a pizza, to have some fanboy asking him for an autograph. And so I just smiled and treated him like any other customer. He did tip me really well. And I've got the story 25 years later, which was worth way more than any autograph or any tip could have been. I look forward to seeing you and all of your viewers at UW-Madison in the fall.